Hi, everyone, and welcome to Noona's Noonchi's podcast. I am so excited to have a special guest. They're all my special guests. Iye Bako, social justice advocate. Iye, thank you so much for joining me on Noona's Noonchi podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Jeannie.
Thanks so much. And you and I met on Clubhouse. Maybe it's been a month now. And so I feel like we've become fast friends. And what I've noticed about you, especially on social media, because that's how we all keep in touch these days, is how active you really are and how supportive you are. So thank you. And that's why I was like, I have to talk to Iye about KDramas because we bonded on, skincare and K-beauty, and that could be one of the conversations too, obviously, because the K-drama stars are gorgeous, obviously. So we'll talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm just going to interview you on all things K-dramas, really simple, but let's start off with what got you into K-dramas in the first place?
I think it was just the fact that first of all, it's become popular and trendy, which I hate that, but I've always been interested in like different Asian cultures like my entire life because I had a best friend growing up who was Japanese. And then I just found out, I think with like this pandemic and like what's on Netflix and like the K-dramas are trending now. So I'm like, let me go and check this out. And that's basically how I came across it. But I've always had an interest and passion for, the Asian film industry.
That's super cool. So I love how you said it's getting all trending now. It's true. So it sounds like, when did you first get into K-dramas or start watching them?
I just started watching them like, I would say in January with like the beginning of like the beginning of January of last year with like the pandemic and the lockdowns and everything like that. So yeah.
And so then what did you mean that now it's all trending? So you're like, okay, I thought they were like the cool thing and now they're trending.
yeah. Because before it was just like, way before in the past, it was kind of like, it was like a niche drama, like people who, grew up with it or people who like have friends of friends or like in small, online communities knew about it. But I think like everybody knows about K-drama now. And that's why I think it's become trendy because it's being highly recommended as a foreign drama category on Netflix. And I think a lot of Americans especially get their entertainment through Netflix. So it's becoming very prominent there, which I'm excited for, but I'm like, oh, I'm no longer like in the cool wave. It's like everybody is like on it now.
That's funny. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people have gotten into K-dramas because of the pandemic. So can I ask, what was the first K-drama that got you hooked?
So like my favorite K-drama is It's Okay Not to Be Okay. And I really love that one because it touches on so many topics and topics that I've had to deal with in my own life as well. And, you and I have discussed my dad and him, being disabled and needing extra care. So that's one of the ones that really like sucked me in. I'm not an extensive like watch of K-dramas. Like I watch a lot of different Asian dramas from like all different countries, but yeah, that's definitely the one that sucked me in.
And yeah, I love that. I mean, that was actually very well done. When you said suck me in, if you want to be specific, what were some of the things or scenes you can recall that really touched you or hit you in a way that you really related?
I think like I'm really bad at names too, but like it's about, two brothers and a love interest. And it was what really like caught my attention was just how much the older brother had to do to take care. Well, I'm sorry, it goes the other way around. The younger brother had to do to take care of the older brother, and just like the mental exhaustion of it was really relatable to me, and being, a personal caretaker of my dad and just like feeling like you're never able to do enough and like you have to sacrifice your own personal time and things that go along with just being free and being human. You have to like kind of suppress yourself. So I think there's just so many scenes like the one where the brother was like showing that the older brother was showing that he saved all of this money so that he and his younger brother can like move away and like have this like a van and like do something nice for themselves and stuff like that. I think those like heartwarming, touching moments of like the older brother understood the struggle of what it's like to be a caretaker and wanted the younger brother to like be free. And, you know, they could travel if they had this like vacation, like, you know, house, this like RV van. And I thought that was really cute.
So one of the things I know, I love that. And there's a lot. And so that said, you were talking about not just K-dramas, but watching a lot of different cultural shows and Asian shows. You were mentioning that. So then let's talk about your own culture in relationship to watching Asian culture. One of the things I hear people say is, as a Black person, they relate so much. Despite that it's a different culture, and you're literally reading subtitles, right? Don't even understand the
Yeah.
language, but yet feel such
Yeah.
a connection. I would like to outline some of that as your experience as a Black female.
I would say like one thing, and it's not even just being a Black female, but being a Nigerian Black female, because I think that the cultural expectations are just slightly a bit different. But what I can really relate with Asian dramas and like the subject matter is how much we have to give ourselves and our lives and like ask for permission from our parents. I think that parents and family members have such a strong influence in our lives. And like, I could just relate so much to the fact that like, you know, relationships have to be approved by the parents, and like what degree you have has to be approved by the parents, and all these types of things is like really like, it takes me home. It takes me like to my culture, and like, you know, the lifestyle of like having family meals, and like that's where you have like, you know, discussions and things like that. I think that those, you know, culture aspects are really very, very similar.
Yeah, that's so funny. I've actually interviewed a lot of Nigerian females on Clubhouse that are major K-drama fans, just so you know. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. And some of them I hope you get to meet through the K-drama club. But I think that's super cool. So thanks for sharing that. I think I'm learning so much too, hearing some folks through Noona's Noonchi just interviewing different people of different backgrounds. So then I guess I'll go to the fact that you talked about the similarities and you're a social justice advocate. Have you watched any K-dramas that kind of stir on that social justice activism in you?
Oh, that's a good question. In terms of like stir on the social justice advocacy, I mean, I do watch another genre of like Asian films that is like BL dramas. I'm sure you've probably like heard of it too, but it's just like the queer dramas and stuff like that. So I'm all for like equal representation and equality for all people to love whoever they want to love. So I think that, you know, bringing to light the fact that you know, queer life should just be normalized in society, that people should have, you know, options and to be able to be authentic to who they are. And I'd like to bring light to that through my platform. And I think that, you know, sharing entertainment with people in a way that they can experience like, you know, what it's like to be a queer person and, you know, in different countries in Asia versus what it's like to be a queer person in their own culture, and just seeing the similarities and differences. I think that we're becoming such a globalized world where like everything is becoming shared. I think that we just need more people to like amplify the voices of other communities so that we can get to know each other better and like stand up for each other's rights.
Oh gosh, I love that. That's where I just saw the social justice advocate in you. I was like, oh, there she goes.
Yeah.
I love that. So then have you seen, what other dramas have you watched that maybe showed that representation, the queer community? Now we're talking Korean dramas. They're becoming much more progressive, but do you know of a drama that shows that?
There's loads. Like there is the one that I just watched, like what is it called? You Make Me Dance, is super sweet. There's another one called To My Star that's also very sweet. And I'm thinking about other ones.
I didn't see, what was the dance one again?
You Make Me Dance.
You Make Me Dance. Who was in that?
Man, I'm so terrible with names.
Okay,
I'm gonna have to send you a list because I have a lot of them. Like To My Star is another one. It's about like a musical couple.
I did hear about that one. There's so many that I need to see, but someone else mentioned that to me. Yeah, and
yeah.
So what about To My Star? Let's talk about that, or even the dance. Why am I?
You Make Me Dance.
You Make Me Dance. Hello. What are they showing? Do you think it's a good portrayal of the queer community? Let's be honest. Like how, like obviously you really enjoyed them, so you thought so.
Yeah, I mean, and another one too is like Where Your Eyes Linger. Have you heard of that one? That's another really awesome one. Where Your Eyes Linger is so good.
That is that's showing that's representing the LGBTQ plus community.
It is. Yeah, watch Where Your Eyes Linger. You'll love it. It's so sweet.
Oh my gosh, I love how I'm being schooled right here. But this is awesome. This is this is the exact thing that I wanted to show, how K-dramas globally can bring communities together.
I don't want to like speak for like, you know, Korean culture and like if the queer representation like mirrors what it's like over in Korea, but I think to me what it shows is the fact that, you know, love is irrespective of gender, and that they have these dramas just kind of set in like the ones I've watched so far are set in modern times and dealing with issues that people deal with every day. Like, first of all, understanding your sexual orientation and like their coming out story. I think that that is so important for people. And I think that there's the aspect of like, you know, telling your friends and your family, or just coming to terms with it personally, I think is such a huge struggle for people. And I feel like it does accurately represent that whole trajectory of emotions and like, you know, deciding whether or not you're going to take a chance on this type of love because it's not, you know, accepted by the broader community. I think that all of these dramas like do that aspect of it super well. And they're also like very wholesome. Like you don't see too much of like, you know, toxic dynamics with like, you know, just with people, like, I don't know. I think it's like the fact that not many women are represented is kind of like a positive and a negative thing at the same time. It's like, well, women aren't cast in like a negative light or anything like that in the dramas, the K-dramas that I've watched at least. And I think that it's so important to like to see the visibility of this community like in Asia, because I honestly don't know like in the mainstream Korean dramas how much they do represent these types of relationships. I would assume it's a lot less. So it's lovely that there's like a space for these conversations to be had. I think that is one of the most beautiful things I've seen. In terms of the types of storylines, I'm not sure if they're very realistic, because like You Make Me Dance is about like a collector who falls in love with a dancer, and like they have to like live together, work together to like get this like debt settled and paid off. So I'm like, that doesn't seem like a typical storyline that could be represented in real life. And then Where Your Eyes Linger is about a bodyguard and his age mate that he guards. So I'm like the storylines are not always the most realistic, but I think they're fun and they're interesting and they're entertaining. So I just stick around for that.
Yeah, let's say it is K-drama, so they're dramatic, right? And I get it.
Yeah.
Right? But I love what you shared about still representation and showing that and really doing that community justice in the sense of, because they're marginalized, right? And I think the whole point is, you're right, you brought up something very important. We don't see it in the other dramas. I would love to see it more blended in, if that makes
Me
sense.
too.
And I think, well, me too.
I haven't watched. Oh yeah, I have to watch that one. I've heard good things.
But now the person there, she's transgender, but still representing of just that community and she's a powerful character. And I did one of my Noona's Noonchi episodes on her because her thing was the coming out story. She was outed. Well, spoiler alert, she was outed before she was ready. Does that make sense? And you know how that happens, right? And it was just a vicious but doesn't matter, her resiliency shined through. So it's like one of those like, you go girl, you got this, right? And she didn't let that take away anything from her identity. She owned it after that point. But what's another, you were just talking about another drama. You were just going to talk about something real quick.
Oh man, I can't remember which one that was. But I think at the end I was kind of talking about like Where Your Eyes Linger. That was the story about the bodyguard, and like he guards like his classmate. It's such an interesting story because like they grew up together, and I don't know, it's not very realistic, but it's so interesting and entertaining.
And I think that's the most the factor. By the way, have you learned any Korean watching it? Has anything picked up for you?
Oh man, I don't think so. Like that's super bad. I'm trying to like think if I can garner any words that have stuck with me. I can't even think of one.
I put you on the spot there. I guess I was curious because people do pick up Korean that I'm like impressed. I'm like, you know, we'll give you a year and you'll be like a pro.
I will. Now, hold me to it because I love languages.
Yeah. Now, what's the latest one, or what are you currently watching?
Ooh, in terms of like Korean dramas that I'm currently watching, I'm actually waiting for a couple new ones to come out. I don't even know the name of it, but it's like with 3 characters that were in the dramas that I had mentioned before. They were in Where Your Eyes Linger. And then there was this other one that came out called Mr. Heart. You probably haven't heard of that one either. The actor in Mr. Heart is going to be in a new drama that I can't remember the name of it yet, but it's going to be a period piece. This is going to be the first period piece that I'm going to be watching.
Oh, Mr. Hart. Okay, you know what? I think I've seen it. There's so many good ones coming out. Like it's hard to keep track. But what I do is if I start getting overwhelmed with all the ones I have to see, then I get overwhelmed. So I'm like, let me just focus on the ones I'm watching. But
I'm making you a list after this.
There's a whole list. No, there's a lot of good ones. But it's your first historical drama piece. Okay. That's a cool experience in itself. There's not all of them are great, but a lot of them are well done. I'm super excited for you to see that. I guess lastly, if you can let's talk about one of the fun parts of K-dramas. What else do you notice besides the drama and the plot and the storyline? What else are you looking at? Because I'll give you an example. I look at the actors and the actresses, how pretty they look, right? Do you feel like as you're watching this, any impressions of just K-beauty or I guess body image, does any of that come up to you? Because that can also affect well-being, right? I mean, especially if we're talking about women. So I guess I wanted to know what your thoughts on that, what you have noticed watching K-dramas.
I have noticed in watching K-dramas that especially Korean women are portrayed to be extremely petite with like the perfect jawline. I know that the jawline is really important part of the Korean culture. And then the impeccable clear skin, which is why we're all obsessed with like Korean skincare, right? But like I just noticed that even the male actors have this impeccably pristine, clear skin. So I think that the beauty standards in Korea in terms of like having a flawless face is extremely high. And not only that, I think like, as a Black woman, I do notice the fact that in terms of the Korean, acting and film industry, we see mostly representation of people who are extremely light skinned. And I'm sure that it's part of the culture over there to like, admire, light skin. And it's for different reasons than in the US. I've kind of had some conversations about this. It's like a part of the history was that if you worked outside, you were darker versus where if you worked in the home, you were lighter, and people who, worked in the home were generally more wealthy. So that's kind of like the reason why there's these like different portrayals of like skin color in Korea versus like in the United States. Is like the difference in like who we put up on a pedestal comes from the unfortunate legacy of slavery versus in Asia, it's for different reasons.
That's such a good point because classism is a big part of the Korean culture and society. And you're right. Even growing up, I'll share, obviously the Zoom meeting makes me look all pale, but I'm not. So I tend to tan easily and I the sun, I'll put sunblock on, but I do tend to have some color in the summer and I like it because maybe it's me growing up in the States. I feel like that shows some healthiness too, having some color. But you're right. When I have visited Korea as a child, it's not like I was scolded, but they were like, "Oh, you're too dark." And it was more, not so much colorism or technically how it is in the US, it's more of that status. They were like,
status.
You're not outside, like, tending to the fields. But as a child, I was
exactly.
Right. So I would get tan. But I remember that. And I remember, I'll be honest, I remember thinking, what's wrong with getting some color? Because I'm in the sun and I'm wearing sunblock. But I just remember them thinking, oh no, you're supposed to be white. So I think, I guess the K-beauty images, it's gorgeous to look at, but I don't know how realistic is it because I mean, I try to be as, to cover up as possible.
Yeah.
You still get color when you're out in the sun, but they don't spend much time in the sun. I think that's
so I've heard. I love the fashion though. In addition to that, it's like, I'm blown away by the outfits and the artistry of the outfits. And I'm also like getting into real estate and stuff like that. So I'm loving the interiors of like the homes and the spaces and stuff like that. I'm really in love with Korean design. So I think that they've got that going on for them too.
Totally. And and it's okay to not be okay. Do you remember her outfits?
They were next level. They were ridiculous. Hands down.
And so I would just watch, and of course they were dramatized, like because she also was she had this fashion about her, but I just remember thinking the fashion was next level for her.
Yeah, she had a larger than life personality. So the outfits had to go with her personality and her mood. Every single mood she was in, there was a different outfit for it.
So lastly, I said I was lastly, my question was last before. Anything you want to add about what you tell people who perhaps have asked you, hey, Iye, what do you like about K-dramas? What do you really, I mean, you're a Black woman. What do you find in common with it? How would you answer that? And I feel like we touched on it, but I would love your answer to sum up.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of a tough question because it's like, I just love everything about it. And to me, I've always liked international film industry. So it's like, to me, it surprises me, like living here in the United States, that people don't watch like other countries, like television and movies and things like that. I'm like, you are missing out on so much. And I think, you know, if anyone were to ask me like what, you know, specifically draws me to K-drama, and I would just say that it's the beauty of it, it's the artistry, it's the cinematography, it's the storylines are very unique from the typical storylines you see in the US. I love the cultural aspect and like the Korean food. Like I'm vegan, and obviously like none of these dramas are like focus on anything vegan related, but I'm still somebody who's interested in cuisine. So I'm like, what are they eating over there? Like I love this like family, you know, setup of like having all these like small tiny dishes of different cuisine, and I'm just so here for learning about what other people are eating and enjoying and how they're getting along together socially. So I think that to me it's like, if you want to, you know, expand your mindset and learn about other parts of the world, like please watch K-drama, go and learn about different cultures and just enjoy the journey and the experience.
I love that. And so I lied. I thought I had another question. I do have one more. How has this helped your mental health?
I think greatly, because I think that, you know, being in lockdown and not getting to see, you know, friends as often as I would like, I think that it's been a mental health boon for me because it's transported me to an alternate reality and an even different reality than I would have experienced with watching American dramas, because it's a whole foreign culture, like different ways of life and things like that. And I think that that escapism and that separation and the fact that I miss traveling is like, you know, for me, it helps me to experience a little bit of that euphoria that I miss from being able to be out and about in different countries and traveling. So I think it's been great.
Cool. Thank you so much, Iye, for joining me and being my new fast friend on Clubhouse. You've been such a support just with what's been going on. Thank you. Thanks for listening, guys, to Noona's Noonchi's podcast. Please join us each week for a podcast episode on talking about K-dramas from a mental health perspective. You can listen in on platforms such as Spotify, Pandora, Google, and Apple, but also watch the podcast on our Noona's Noonchi YouTube channel every Monday, where it launches at 6 p.m. Eastern.